Access your free language gifts right now before they expire. First, the Talking About Interests cheat sheet. With this cheat sheet, you'll be able to talk about your hobbies, how often you do them, and much more. Second, 10 phrases you need for introducing yourself. If you're new to the language and can't yet introduce yourself, then this 1-minute lesson is for you. Third, how to say hello like a native speaker. This quick lesson will teach you 15 unique ways to say hello and greet others. Fourth, most common ways to say goodbye. What about saying bye? Do you know all the ways to say bye in your target language? This 1-minute lesson will get them stuck in your head, guaranteed. Fifth, the How Are You and How to Answer It writing workbook. With this printable PDF workbook, you'll learn all the ways to ask and answer the question, how are you? And you'll be able to practice writing the phrases out as well. And finally, our big collection of language learning audiobooks for anyone who's watched this far. If you visit the link below, we'll send you over to our library of language learning audiobooks, which you can get for free. Save them to your device and listen and learn. They're yours to keep forever. To get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Zachary. Hi Zachary. Zachary says, hi Alicia, what's the difference between no more and not anymore? Also, what's the difference between no more and no longer? Thank you. Great question. Okay, let's talk about no more and not anymore to start, and then we'll go to the second part. So, no more can be used in a couple of different situations. First, let's talk about the everyday conversational use of no more. We use no more to express like when something is too much. For example, if someone is bringing us lots and lots of food to eat, we might say, no more, meaning no more food, please, or no more of that, please. It's too much. So we use no more to mean I don't want any more of that. So you might have just picked up on me also using any more in this situation too. So when I said no more, please, it means like too much. I don't want that anymore. But we cannot use not anymore in this situation. We use not anymore to refer to a condition that has changed. So for example, if you worked at company A for a very long time and then changed your company, you might use not anymore to express this in a conversation with another person. They might say to you, hey, are you still working at company A? And you might say, not anymore. Now I'm working at company B. So this expresses a change in condition. So I am not anymore working at that company. So not anymore is used to express a change in condition. When I used no more to express that something was too much and I wanted something to stop, I said, no more, please, no more. I don't want any more of that. So we use this slightly different form to express something is too much, and we use not anymore to talk about a change in condition. Here's another example where you might use not anymore. For example, in a conversation between two friends talking about their dating life, one person might say, hey, I thought that you were seeing that guy that you met at the bar last week. And the second person might say, not anymore, we weren't a good fit. So again, this expresses a change in condition. We use not anymore to talk about something that is different from the expected condition. So I hope this helps show the difference between no more and not anymore. Now let's talk about no longer, no longer. We don't use no longer so much in everyday conversation, but it can be used also like not anymore to talk about a change in condition or a desired change in condition. For example, you might hear a politician use the expression no longer to talk about a desired change for the future. Like, no longer will we have to struggle in this situation. So that means not anymore will we have to struggle in this situation. So this use of no longer is often used in kind of like motivating speeches, like in a politics situation or maybe in like a war or battle situation in movies, like no longer will we do this thing or no longer will we stand for this policy, something like that. It means we are not going to do that anymore. So the grammar I'm using there is no longer will we. This means we are not going to do that anymore. So you can kind of think of no longer as like a more formal way of saying not anymore, but we tend to use it to talk about our future plans or our future expectations. Like I'm no longer going to be working for this company, or or I'm no longer going to do X, Y, and Z. So this is talking about something that will not be true in the future, or that we desire to not be true in the future. So I hope this kind of clarifies the difference between these words. Finally, the last point I want to make is about the first expression, no more. So we also use this no more in the same way as no longer, to mean this is something we are not going to put up with anymore. So we use this no more again in more formal situations, like when we're talking about struggle. So like some kind of political difficulty, for example, like country A is giving country B a hard time and we will stand for this no more. So again, these kinds of expressions, no more and no longer, tend to sound a little bit more formal, but you may see them in like dramatic movies or in political situations. We don't really use them so much in everyday conversation, even in professional conversation, but this is maybe how you might see them used from time to time. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between these three expressions. Interesting question. Okay, great. Thanks very much for sending along that question. Let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Miriam Atef. Hi, Miriam. Miriam says, what is the difference between immigration, migration, and emigration? Great question. Okay, immigration, migration, emigration. Let's talk about migration first. Migration refers to animals, the patterns of animals in the different seasons. So we often use migration to talk about birds. So migration refers to the seasonal movement patterns of animals. So birds often migrate, that's the verb form, they migrate south for the winter. They go to warmer climates. So the noun form of this is migration. We sometimes use migration to talk about people's movements as well, like especially when we're talking about climate change, people moving from certain regions of the world to other regions of the world as maybe climate change has affected their home region. So migration is usually used to talk about the behaviors of animals in relationship to the seasons, but you may occasionally see it used to talk about how people's movements have changed in response to like climate-related issues. Now though, let's talk about immigration and emigration. So they are very, very closely related. To emigrate with an E refers to leaving your own country. So leaving the place that you are from or the place where you were born. That is emigration. Immigration means going into the new country. So you can see how these are very, very commonly confused and very, very easy to mix up. If you get confused between them, that's okay. That's totally normal. It's very normal to check the dictionary just to make sure before you use one of these words. So immigration, maybe it can be helpful for you to think of immigration as sounding kind of like in, right? So I know it's IMM, immigration, but it sounds a little bit like in. So remember immigration as going into the country. Emigration refers to leaving the country, departing the country. So as you can see, they're very, very closely related. So you would say in a sentence, I immigrated to country A, or I emigrated from country B. That's the difference here. Immigration is the noun form, emigration is the noun form as well. To immigrate and to emigrate are the verb forms. So I hope that helps answer your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Jose. Hi, Jose. Jose says, hi, could you please explain to us the usages of used to, be used to, and get used to? I would really appreciate it. Okay, thanks very much for this question. So the answer to this question does depend on the structure of the sentence. We have used to and this be used to. So we have these two things that really, really depend on the structure of the surrounding sentence. When we use the expression used to, like I'm used to doing this or I'm used to doing that, it means I am accustomed to doing that thing. So I'm used to cooking dinner every day, or I'm used to exercising every morning. It means I'm accustomed to doing that thing. Be used to, on the other hand, refers to the function of something. So for example, my phone is used to make calls refers to the function of my phone. Or this computer is used to edit videos. That refers to the function of that computer. So when we use the be verb used to pattern, we're referring to the function of something. Okay, so we have this used to and is used to pattern to consider. So let's talk talk about the last one, get used to. We use this in expressions like, you'll get used to it, or don't worry, give it a couple weeks, you'll get used to your new job. This means you will become accustomed to doing something, or you will become accustomed to a new situation. Get used to something is used to express that future expectation that you will become accustomed to something. You might also hear this used in past tense, like, after a month I got used to it, which means it took about a month and then I was accustomed to doing that thing. So to get used to something is used to talk about becoming accustomed to a new situation or maybe to a new action that you have to do. Okay, great. So I hope this quick answer gives you a good introduction to the differences between these expressions. To recap, used to refers to being accustomed to something. Be used to refers to the function of something. And get used to refers to becoming accustomed to something. Or in past tense, refers to having become accustomed to something. So I hope this answers your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, that is everything that I have for this week. So thank you as always for sending your great questions. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Edwin Science. Hi Edwin. Edwin says, hi Alicia, what is the difference between nite, N-I-G-H-T, and nite, N-I-T-E? Thanks, love your videos. Cool, thanks for the question, Edwin. Yeah, nite and nite, they have the same pronunciation. The answer is a pretty short one. We use the N-I-T-E spelling of nite just when we want to be extra casual for some reason. For example, when we write a text to our friends, instead of writing the full word good night, N-I-G-H-T, we might just write night with N-I-T-E. It's kind of a more casual way to say night or good night. You might also see people use it in place of N-I-G-H-T just because it's a little bit shorter or it just sounds a little bit more casual. So again, we typically use this when we're writing in text messages to our friends or maybe our family members or to someone that we feel comfortable writing these kind of informal messages to. You might also see people using it in tonight as well, as in T-O-N-I-T-E instead of T-O-N-I-G-H-T. This is another common way that some people like to use this N-I-T-E spelling instead of the N-I-G-H-T spelling. So if you want to remember to always use the correct standard spelling, you should stick with the N-I-G-H-T spelling of night, but you will probably see in lots of different situations people using the N-I-T-E spelling of night and in tonight and in expressions like good night as well. So this is what it means. It's just a very casual way of saying night, and you can use it if you feel comfortable with it. So I hope this answers your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Avijit Das. Hi Avijit, I hope I said your name correctly. Avijit says, if someone asks me, how have you been? Can I say, good, I have been busy preparing for my master's exam. Now I'm totally free. Yeah, you could absolutely say something like this. Actually, this is a really good question to practice some answers to. So the question here is, how have you been? How have you been? And at native speed, this sounds very fast. It sounds like, how have you been? How have you been? So this is a really great question that you can use to drill some answers to. So how have you been doesn't just mean how are you now at this moment. It means, how have you been since the last time I saw you? So from this last point that we met, this last moment that we met, until this point in time, what was your condition? Or what were you doing? So you can answer this question very shortly. How have you been? Busy. You can use an adjective like that. How have you been? I've been okay. You could say something like that. Or how have you been? My life has been so crazy lately. So you can use adjectives like busy or I've been okay or crazy to give people a quick response, or exactly as you did in your answer, you can give some detailed information like I've been busy preparing for my master's exam, or I've been busy working on a new project, or I haven't been doing much. It's been a pretty relaxing few weeks. So you can give some detail with this kind of question, and it's up to you how much detail you want to provide. At the end of your question, you wrote, now I'm totally free. You can give some information like that if you really want to, but this is kind of an opener for a conversation, right? How have you been? So the other person might want to talk a little bit about what you have been up to, and then you can ask them the same question in return. So maybe you don't need to include, now I'm totally free, unless you really want to. But kind of keep in mind that this is kind of a conversation opener. So you can share a little bit about what you have been up to for the last few weeks or months or days, and use that to start your conversation with someone else. So again, this is a great question to practice your answers to. And of course, practice answering this too. So, how have you been? I've been so busy. How have you been? You can use that to start your conversation and catch up with a friend or a coworker. So I hope this answers your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Hakuye. Hi, Hakuye. I hope I said your name right. Hakuye says, can you tell me the usage of by no means and by all means? Sure, yeah, really interesting expressions. So we have by no means and by all means, and there's one more that I will add to this one, which is by any means or by any means necessary. So let's go one by one through these. The first one, by no means. We typically see this used in more formal situations like contract documents or maybe agreements or expressions of official rules of some kind. So by no means that you absolutely should not do something. For example, by no means should you enter that building, or by no means should you participate in today's discussion, or by no means should you send that file to him. So by no means is used to mean you should not do something. Definitely do not do something. So on the other hand, when you use by all means, it has the opposite meaning. It's a welcoming expression that something is totally fine to do, and if anything, you encourage that behavior. So for example, at a party, you might say, oh, you want to invite your friend to the party? Yeah, by all means, please feel free to bring your friend to the party. Or if maybe you want to take some time off work and your boss really supports that, they might say, yeah, by all means, take a couple days off and go enjoy your vacation. So by all means is like a very supportive, encouraging expression. It's like saying you're welcome to do that. Please feel free to do that. So it's quite the opposite, yeah? It's pretty much the opposite of by no means, which is you absolutely should not do that. Okay, great. So we talked about by no means and by all means. Now let's talk about one more expression. It's by any means. And we usually use this in the phrase by any means necessary, which means we need to do something no matter what it takes, no matter what's required. So by any means necessary is kind of an intense expression to use when something is really, really important or something really, really needs to be done or something really needs to happen. So for example, if you imagine a police interview or police interrogation with a criminal or a suspect or something, they might say, you need to get him to talk by any means necessary, which means do anything you have to do to get this person to talk or to give a confession in some way. So this is kind of an intense expression. Or another example might be, make sure you get that report submitted today by any means necessary. So it sounds quite intense. It means do anything you have to do to make sure this happens, to make sure that this works out in some way. So when you say by any means necessary, it means you can do whatever you need to do. So in some cases, you might see in like the movies that suggests like illegal behavior or some kind of dangerous behavior. So that's kind of the idea here, that something is so important that maybe you should do something a little bit different or a little bit strange or a little bit desperate in order to make it happen. So this is the feeling of by any means necessary. So I hope this answers your question. To recap, by no means something you definitely should not do. By all means something that you are welcome to do and encouraged to do. And by any means necessary means something that you should definitely do no matter what it takes. So I hope this helps answer your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you as always for sending your super great questions. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Nithya. Hi Nithya. Nithya says, should has lots of meanings. I don't know when I should use it. For example, auditors should check invoices of sales. Auditors should be independent. Auditors should not disclose. can I consider this advice, or can I consider this as an expectation or the right thing to do? Yeah, great question. For sure, should has lots and lots of different meanings, and you're correct. You can consider using should as advice, like you should do this or you should not do that. You should absolutely consider it for advice, and as an expectation. So yes, you should consider it as advice in some instances, and your way of expressing it as an expectation is also correct. In your example, you included auditors should be independent, for example. So that means it's expressing some kind of expectation for something. You can see this in company rules or in school rules, for example, like students should arrive by 8 o'clock, or all employees should wear uniforms. So how do you know when it's like an advice situation or when it's an expectation situation? And a kind of guide that you can use with this is to think about the relationship and the context. So what is the situation? If you're talking with your friend or a family member and you're expressing your opinion, your idea, like you should come to the party, or you shouldn't go over there, or I think you should do this, you can consider that as an advice statement. When you see should used in like an official agreement, in a contract, in rules or something like that, as in your example sentences, you can consider it as a kind of expectation, like that's some kind of desired behavior or some kind of desired situation or condition. So think a little bit about the context. So yes, you're absolutely correct. You can use should to give advice and to receive advice and to express these expectations too. So you're completely correct, and I hope that you can just take a look at the context, the overall situation, to decide which type of should you're looking at. So yes, when you see should used in these kinds of situations, you can consider it as advice or as an expectation. Another use of should to keep in mind is in the past tense. When we use expressions like should have or shouldn't have, we use these patterns to express regret. So, I shouldn't have eaten so much at dinner, or I should have submitted that application. So we use these patterns to express regret. So that's another use of should, but that one's a little bit easier to understand because we use it in past tense, should have and shouldn't have. So those are regret patterns. So these are three different uses of should, or three kind of different nuances is another way to consider it. So I hope that this helps answer your question about when to use should and what it means. So thanks very much for sending this question along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Julie. Hi, Julie. Julie says, I saw in the plane they wrote, fasten your seatbelts while seated. Why did they use while seated instead of while sitting or when seated? Okay, interesting question. This is maybe just a personal choice from the person who is preparing the text. Both are correct. You could say when seated or while sitting as well. So these are just slightly different grammatical structures to use. So we also have this when and while to consider. That's what you brought up in your question. Really interesting point. Okay, so let's talk first about the differences between when and while. First, let's talk about while. We tend to use while when we're talking about multiple things happening at the same time, like two actions happening at the same time. For example, I was listening to music while doing my homework. We're talking about two things happening simultaneously. We can also use while to talk about a condition, like a temporary condition. For example, while the suspect was at the police station, he was asked many different questions. So we have kind of this temporary situation that we're expressing sometimes with while, and we also use it to talk about something that's happening at the same time as something else. So in this example, while seated, we can kind of think of it as a temporary condition, like you're on the airplane, right? So while seated is your temporary situation, right? So let's compare this to when. So in addition to talking about a change in condition or a change in action with when, like marking the change point with when, we can also use it to talk about a current condition. So in your example, we could say, when seated, please fasten your seatbelts. We can also use when in this way. So there is some overlap between when and while. If you're wondering like which one is more correct or which one should I use? So in cases like these where you're talking about a condition, in this case it's like a rule on an airplane, both are perfectly fine to use. use, like fasten your seatbelt while seated, or fasten your seatbelt when seated. They're both fine to use. They both communicate the same idea. There is some overlap between these two. So finally, let's just talk quickly about the differences between sitting and seated. The short answer is that they're both totally fine to use here. They both refer to the same thing. Sitting is the progressive form of sit down, right? The sit and sit down. So I am sitting right now, or I am seated right now. These both refer to exactly the same thing. So they're both okay to use in a situation like you described on the plane. So fasten your seatbelts while seated. Fasten your seatbelts while sitting down, for example, or fasten your seatbelts when sitting. So it's kind of up to you. It's kind of up to the writer in some cases to choose whichever they feel is best. This is one of those situations in language where there are multiple correct answers. So yes, you identified some other alternatives. That's totally fine. It's up to the person creating the text sometimes, or the person creating the language, to make those choices for themselves. So to wrap up, all of these are okay. The ones that you mentioned are all okay. You've just identified a situation in which there are multiple possible ways to express the same idea. So I hope that you take away from this answer that there are sometimes many different ways to say something. Thanks very much for sending this interesting question along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from DTN Siriwardhana. I hope I said your name right. DTN says, what is the difference between past tense and present perfect tense? Classic question. Let's review this classic grammar question. Past tense versus present perfect tense. The short answer for both of these, first, simple past tense, is that simple past tense is used to describe an action that started and ended in the past. We have a specific point in time. For example, I ate breakfast this morning. So I ate breakfast, right? The action is finished. When? This morning. So we use simple past tense to express that. Or, I saw my brother last week. So when did the action happen? Last week. And what was the action? I saw my brother. So the action started and it ended in the past. We use simple past tense to express this. We can also use simple past tense to talk about repeated actions in the past. For example, I went to the gym every day last week. So we can use simple past tense for these actions that started and ended in the past. The key is that the action is not a continuing action. Okay, so let's compare this to present perfect tense. Present perfect tense has two uses, and we can use it in a continuous form as well. We use present perfect tense to talk about an experience in the past at a non-specific point in time. For example, I have been to China. When did we go to China? I don't know, or it's not important. I just want to express the life experience. In a negative sentence, we could say, I have not been to Thailand. So we are expressing no experience in this case. Again, when? It doesn't matter, or it's not important. We just want to express the experience. Remember, with simple past tense, we're talking about an action at a specific past point in time. We don't do this with this use of present perfect tense. However, the second use of present perfect tense does include a start point for an action or a condition in the past. For example, I have been working here for 5 years. This is a present perfect continuous structure. I have been working here for 5 years. This is the second use of this grammar point, and we can use it to talk about an action that started in the past and continues to the present. I have been working here for 5 years expresses this. Or, I haven't been sleeping well lately. This is an example of a negative use of this grammar point. Again, something that started at a past point and continues to the present. So the key difference here is that simple past tense is used to talk about actions that are done. They're complete. They're in the past. They're finished. They're over. However, on the other hand, present perfect tense is used to talk about actions at non-specific points in the past, like life experience, or to talk about actions or the effects of actions that started in the past and continued to the present. I have made many videos about these grammar points, so I highly recommend you do a quick search on the YouTube channel to find more lessons about these topics. There's a lot of information about these. So I hope this was a good, quick introduction for you to these grammar points. Okay, thanks very much for sending this question. All right, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending your questions. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Nithya. Hi, Nithya. Nithya says, the phrasal verb heat up. You said you mostly use this with microwave ovens. Can I use this phrase for gas? Like, can you heat up this tea for me? We don't have a microwave oven, we have a gas induction stove. Oh yes, of course, you can absolutely use the phrasal verb heat up in other situations. So if I said that this is usually used in microwave ovens, yeah, that's maybe the most common appliance that we use this with in the US households. But absolutely, you can use this phrasal verb in other situations too. So basically, to heat something up means to make something warm. So you can definitely use it with a stove, you can use it with whatever kind of heating device you have. You can use it to talk about a room, like, oh, can you please heat up the room? It's so cold in here. Or, I want to heat up my lunch on the stove. You can use this for any situation in which you want to make something warm. So we use the phrasal verb heat up to do that. You can also split this phrasal verb, like, I need to heat my lunch up, or let's heat the room up, it's so cold in here. So this is an example of a phrasal verb that you can split. By split, again, just to refresh your mind, I mean you can split the heat from the up, the verb plus the preposition. You can move those two apart and put the object in the middle, like heat my lunch up and heat up my lunch are both totally fine to use. So the short answer is yes, you can definitely use this for situations outside of your microwave oven. The key is that you are making something warm. So thanks very much for this question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Serioza. Hi, Serioza. I hope I said your name correctly. Serioza says, hello, Alicia. My question, how do I learn new words? I'm confused. I've heard in other videos that to learn new words, I should study translations. But on the other hand, if I want to think in English, I shouldn't use a translation or I shouldn't use dictionaries. But if I don't understand a word without translating it, what should I do? Thanks for your answer. I appreciate it. Yeah, super, super great question. Of course, it makes sense completely. You want to think in English, right? So you don't want to translate in your head and take all that time. But in order to know the words, you have to learn them somehow, right? So I would recommend that you don't put so much pressure on yourself to try to do everything perfectly in English right away. It's completely natural to study vocabulary words and use dictionaries to look up words that you don't know. I absolutely still do this in Japanese, the language that I've been studying for a very long time. It is 100% acceptable to look up new words that you don't know, and then you practice them, just as you would with any other vocabulary word or any other grammar point that you learn. The key here, though, is just to remember that you don't want to rely on your dictionary every time you see that word in the future, right? So that means that you need to start trying to create with those words that you're learning. So maybe you find a new word in a book that you're reading, for example, and you think, oh, I don't know this word, and I can't guess the meaning of the word from the context, so you check the dictionary. Great, that's fine. Maybe you make a note of the word in your notebook, and then maybe you try to make a sentence or a question with that word, and then maybe you speak something using that word. You say like a sentence with it, whatever. So the key is that you're not just using a dictionary to make your language happen, if that makes sense. You're not relying on the dictionary for your conversations. You're not relying on the dictionary to help you write a paragraph all the time, but rather you check the dictionary when you need to, and then you apply it, right? So to go back to one of your points in your question about wanting to think in English, I would suggest you don't try to put a lot of pressure on yourself to force this on yourself, because this is often something that happens without even thinking about it, which is kind of strange, I know, right? Like you're thinking so hard about how to not think in your native language. It sounds really, really strange, right? But oftentimes when we're studying another language, we just kind of wake up one day and we say something in the language we're studying and we go, oh, wait, I didn't have to think about that. That was really cool. And then you have those moments over and over the more you study. So it's not like one day you just wake up and everything comes out perfectly. That is maybe not going to happen for a long, long time. And that's okay. There are still moments in our native languages where maybe we need to look up the meaning of a new word that we found, right? So don't put so much pressure on yourself to think in only English right away. Take the time to study the vocabulary words and just start putting them into the information you already know. Start putting them into the grammar structures you know. Or start looking at the books that you're reading and thinking about how you can use those words in those books in your everyday life. So just start to think about different ways that you can use the new things that you're learning. So just don't put so much pressure on yourself to think only in English. That's something that will happen gradually and with time. I know that we're all very excited to get to a point where our language skills can be really, really smooth smooth and everything can sound great and perfect. But in reality, it does take work to get there. So if you're having some trouble with this kind of desire to get to that point really, really quickly, maybe try setting yourself some really small goals. That might help a little bit. So maybe you decide, okay, this week I'm going to focus on how to order something on the phone, like a delivery food item maybe. And then you practice that over and over and over so that you're able to say that without thinking so much in your native language. Maybe if you really, really, really want to push for that kind of, oh, no, thinking in my native language state, you can set yourself some small goals like that. So that means like an everyday life moment that you just practice a lot in English until you can do it without thinking about it. So to recap very quickly, these would be my recommendations. 1, it's completely okay to use a dictionary to look up new words that you don't know. It's totally natural. 2, try to use the new words that you're learning in different ways in your life. Make sentences, make different questions with them, whatever it is, make sure to use them. 3rd, don't put so much pressure on yourself to try to get to that point where you don't need to think in your native language ever again. It's not super realistic, especially if you're in the beginning stages. And 4th, try to set some small goals for yourself so that you can work towards something specifically without thinking about it. So I hope that these tips answer your question and help you with your motivation as you continue learning new vocabulary words. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Anna Maria. Hi, Anna Maria. Anna Maria says, how do I pronounce words with TH? Ah, yes, a very, 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 very common pronunciation question. So how do we make the TH sound in English? There are 2 TH sounds to consider. They are the unvoiced and the voiced TH sounds. So how do you know whether the TH sound is a voiced or an unvoiced TH sound? A quick way to do this is to touch your throat when you make the sound. So a voiced TH sound will cause your throat to vibrate. Your vocal cords will vibrate. So when you do this, it sounds like the. So your tongue is between your teeth, and your vocal cords vibrate when you make this TH sound, this type of TH sound. On the other hand, when you make an unvoiced TH sound, your vocal cords will not vibrate. So your tongue is still in the same position or a similar position, but there's no vibration happening here. You're just passing air through your mouth. This is what's called an unvoiced TH sound. So to compare the two quickly, we have the, which is the voiced sound, and which is the unvoiced sound. So we have these 2 types of TH sound to consider. That means that you need to make sure that you're not using a voiced TH sound in a situation where you should not, and vice versa as well. So for example, the word this, we use a voiced TH sound to produce that. This. If I touch my throat, I hear not this. It's not this, but this. I'm using that voiced TH sound to do that. On the other hand, if I say a word like three, I'm not making any sound with my throat when I say the TH in this word. Three. So yes, there is an E sound in that word, which causes my vocal cords to move, but the TH sound does not make a three sound at the beginning. So keep this in mind when you're practicing those TH sounds. There are 2 types, but as far as tongue and mouth position, I know it's going to feel really, really strange, and oftentimes in the past, my students would start to laugh in lessons where we practice this sound because it feels kind of uncomfortable, I know, but put your tongue between your teeth, like this. Maybe hard to see. And make the th as you release that sound. So I sometimes see students maybe putting their tongue behind their teeth or doing something else kind of strange, like making a d sound as well, like putting your tongue at the top of your mouth. But to practice making this sound, you can go crazy and just try to put your tongue between your teeth, the, if it's really hard for you. So practice doing that voiced, the, and unvoiced, as well too. So not using any vibration here. Those are the 2 types of TH sounds, and I hope this quick practice can help you to practice both of them, okay? So I hope this helps answer your question about how to pronounce TH in English, okay? Thanks very much for sending it along. All right, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending your great questions. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Ninad. Hi, Ninad. I hope I said your name correctly. Ninad says, what does clocks mean here? Before anyone clocks my chopper. Oh, super great question. So clocks. this has a couple of different meanings. We'll talk about this first one that we saw in your example sentence, and then we'll talk about a second use of clocks as a verb here. So clock as a noun, of course, is the thing that we use to tell time. But as a verb, it has a totally different meaning. So don't think about time at all with this answer. So first, let's look at the example sentence that you provided. Before anyone clocks my chopper. So chopper is another way to say helicopter. But clocks here means impacts or runs into or hits or damages in some way. So we can sometimes use this word in like fight situations. For example, if we want to talk about a fist fight between two people, we might say, one guy clocked the other guy, which means punched the other guy. Usually it refers to a punch, some kind of impact in some way. So we use clocks in this way to mean he punched the other person. You might also hear people using clock in this kind of situation that you've described here. Clocks my chopper, which means impacts or hits my chopper or hits my vehicle in some way. He clocked me. You might hear this used in like a car accident situation to talk about the impact of two vehicles. So the reason that we use clock instead of like impact is because clock sounds a lot more casual and kind of rough, and it sounds kind of more like a word we would use in like a fight situation. So there's a little bit of kind of an aggressive feel of this too. So if you wanted to talk about a car accident in kind of a casual, rough way, like maybe if you're describing an experience to a friend or to a family member and not to, for example, the police, you would maybe choose to use the word clock, like, the other car clocked me out of nowhere. That sounds like you were impacted in a very surprising way and that it was kind of aggressive or it was a very like shocking moment. So clock can be used in this way to talk about hits and impacts and damages in fights and in other accident kind of situations. So this is one use of clock as a verb. I want to talk about one more use of clock as a verb, and that is when we're talking about like racing scenarios in lots of cases. So you might hear clock used in a situation like this. We clocked him at 60 miles an hour. So this use of clock means tracked someone's speed or tracked someone's time. So when you clock a vehicle, usually there's some kind of number that comes along with this meaning. So in my example sentence, we clocked him at 60 miles an hour. That means the pace of the car was traveling at 60 miles an hour, or the pace of the vehicle was traveling at 60 miles an hour. So when you hear clock used with a number, usually this is what happens with this pattern, it means that's the pace or that's the time that we tracked someone moving at. So here's another example. So for this example, let's talk about a runner, someone running in a marathon or someone running in a running event. If you want to describe that person's time, you might use the verb clock to do it. For example, Usain Bolt was clocked at 1 minute 30 seconds for the race. So that means that was the time that was recorded. If it helps you, you can think of this use of clock as having some relationship to an actual clock in that you use the clock to understand how much time has passed or the speed of someone's travels or whatever that might be. But this use of clock is usually used to talk about pace, to talk about the speed of something, and we typically use it with a number. So that's a quick way that you can figure out, is this a hit, an impact clock, or is this a pace clock? Usually the pace and the time one will have some kind of number along with it. Usually when you talk about an impact, there's not a number. Maybe you might hear somebody say, he clocked my car at 60 miles an hour. And in that case, it might be kind of ambiguous and you might need to ask a follow-up question. In that case, even a native speaker would ask a follow-up question. They might say, wait, do you mean he was traveling at 60 miles an hour or his car hit you and he was going at 60 miles an hour? Like you might need to clarify a little bit, and that's totally natural. But I hope that this answer helps you understand the different uses of clock as a verb. To recap, we have impact, to clock, meaning something impacts something else. And we also have clock, meaning to record the time or to record the speed of someone else's movement or someone else's travel. So thanks very much for this interesting question. I hope this answered it. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Vaughn. Hi, Vaughn. Vaughn says, I recently learned the expression to shed light on something. I understand this means to reveal something, but what does shed mean in this expression? I checked the dictionary and it seems this word has many uses. Can you talk about it? Yes, definitely. Okay, so yes, the word shed has a lot of different uses. We have the noun form. The noun form often refers to a small building, a very small building, like you can imagine it slightly bigger than a closet that we usually keep outside of our houses. This is the place where we might store like gardening tools or other kind of home use equipment, stuff that gets dirty easily. We might keep this in a shed. So that's a very, very common noun use of this word. But this expression, to shed light on something, uses shed as a verb, and there are several different uses of shed as a verb. So let's break down a few of the most common ones. First, when we use to shed light on something, as you said in your question, it does mean like to reveal or like to give some kind of clarity to a situation. So one key thing that you can think about with the verb form of shed is that a lot of the meanings of shed as a verb are related to like giving something or taking off something or removing something. So in this case, you can think of to shed light on something as putting light on something. When you put light on a surface, you can see it more clearly, right? So that's kind of one way to think about it. The other uses of shed are closely related to this idea of removing something or revealing something. So let's talk about a couple more. First, to shed is commonly used with animals. So animals, when they lose hair, or for like maybe snakes and other reptiles, when they lose their skin, we use the verb shed to talk about that. We would say, for example, oh, my cat is shedding, which means my cat is losing their hair. Maybe it's getting hot, so the cat is losing their hair. We call this shedding. So they are removing their skin or they are removing their hair. With a snake, for example, you might say, oh, the snake is shedding its skin. So that means it's removing one layer of skin. So to shed with animals means removing like some kind of hair or some kind of skin, something like that. We have a similar application of shed when we talk about humans and kind of like their bacteria and their germs as well. So one application that we see of shed in the news these days is when we hear people talk about shedding virus or shedding some kind of bacteria, shedding something, that means we are giving off some kind of germ or we're giving off some kind of virus or bacteria. So again, it's that same idea of kind of releasing something from your body. So something is coming off of you. In this case, it's germs. So we have this application for humans and we have it for animals. But in both cases, we're talking about giving something off. We also have the meaning of just letting go of something, of throwing something away, kind of, with shed too. So for example, when we say like, I need to shed these things from my life, I need to shed these concepts from my mind, it sounds like you're letting go of something. You're giving that thing to the universe maybe, or you're going to stop thinking about that thing. So we also have this. This use of shed tends to sound a little bit more formal. We might not use this so much in everyday speech, but you might see someone use this in a media situation, like in a movie perhaps, or in a TV show maybe. We don't really use this so much when we talk to our close friends and our close family members, but you may see this use of shed. So the final use of shed that I want to talk about in this video is one that you kind of see sometimes in emotional situations. When we talk about someone crying, we often use the expression to shed tears. So again, we have that same idea of removing something or kind of letting something out, giving something. So in this case, the tears come from our eyes. You can think of the eyes kind of giving us our tears if you want to imagine it that way. But we have this expression to shed tears, which means to cry. So that means referring specifically to the water coming from your eyes. This is another common use of shed. So to recap quickly, as I said before, all of these uses of shed have the common kind of meaning of giving something off or removing something or something kind of being revealed in some way. So I hope that this answers your question about the use of shed in the expression to shed light on, and I hope this answer also helps prepare you for the other uses of shed that you might see here and there. So thanks very much for this interesting question. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, next question comes from Mari. Hi, Mari. Mari says, I know there are some curse words in English people use when they're very angry or upset, and they are rude words. But sometimes I hear people use words like shoot too. Are these words rude? Are these curse words? How do I use them? Super good question, yeah. So yes, there are many very creative, sometimes curse words or swear words or bad words in English. We have a few different vocabulary words we use to talk about them. Curse words or swear words or bad words. These are the words that, yes, they are rude and we should not use them in polite situations. Don't use swear words at work or when you're meeting like your relatives. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you have a special relationship with your family and it's okay in your family culture to use swear words. That's cool. That's up to you. But generally, yes, swear words are not acceptable in polite situations. However, we do have these kind of substitute swear words. So if you're in a situation where maybe you injure yourself or you make a mistake and you want to kind of express your frustration, but you need to do it in a polite way, we do have these kind of soft curse words. So shoot is one perfect example of this. So regarding whether you can use them or how to use them and so on, these are words that you can use pretty much anywhere. Little kids are taught to use these words to express their frustrations in a polite and soft way too. So it's okay for adults to use them as well. So shoot is one example of this. Another good one is darn, D-A-R-N. So when you make a mistake, people might say, darn. So this is a very, very, very soft way to express frustration or to express that you're feeling upset. So I would say shoot and darn are probably some of the most common ones in American English, and those are probably some of the most popularly taught to kids. Some other examples of sort of soft swear words might be dang it. Dang it. So dang it is D-A-N-G-I-T. Dang it. So again, we use this when we've made a mistake or something has gone wrong. And you might often hear people using this kind of snap sound along with that too. Dang it, I messed that up. Or dang it, I didn't do that correctly. Whatever that might be. So that's another common one. So you could put darn and dang it together to get darn it as well. So you might have heard that in like a cowboy movie somewhere along the line too. That's another one that you might hear in media from time to time. So each person kind of chooses whichever sorts of soft curse words they feel are the most appropriate, or sometimes we just make up something in the moment that sounds kind of funny. So some other common ones that you might hear are people using the word fudge to mean that they've made a mistake. They can use this as a verb, like, I fudged this. Or you might use it as an exclamation, like, fudge, I messed it up. Fudge is a type of chocolate. So this is a pretty soft kind of curse word. So you might hear that. You might also hear people using the pattern son of a something. So this word in an official curse word ends with a very rude word. But some people like to use some kind of crazy word at the end of this expression. So one that you might hear sometimes is son of a gun. That's a good one. Or you might hear people say like son of a beeswax or something kind of weird. They might create something totally original. You can do that with curse words. If you want to just make something up, that's fine to do. I have a friend who says like son of a biscuit, I think. So you can make up kind of whatever you feel like expresses yourself in that moment and just choose like a really soft word to kind of express your frustrations. But the point is here, there are a few swear words that are kind of soft. So shoot, darn, dang it, fudge, darn it, these kinds of things. And son of a plus a kind of soft word. These sorts of things express our frustration and they kind of tell the other people around us, I'm aware I made a mistake, or I really hurt myself, something like that. So you can use these to express those frustrations and you will not be considered rude for doing that. These are much, much better choices than using a very rude swear word. But of course, if you are in a situation where you hurt yourself, you can just use ow or ugh or ugh. Those kinds of sounds are totally fine. Don't worry about choosing a word. Most of us just go when we hurt ourselves. So you can do the same thing too. You don't need to think of a specific vocabulary word unless you want to. So I hope this answers your question about these kind of soft swear words. I hope that you enjoy choosing some and finding some creative new ones for yourself. All right, that is everything that I have for this lesson. Thanks very much for watching this video. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Sylvain Tuyasenge. I hope I said your name correctly. Hi Sylvain. Sylvain says, I appreciate you, my inspiring English teacher. I am from Rwanda. My question is about adjectives. I would like to know the difference between comparatives and superlatives. Okay, sure. Let's talk about the differences, or let's review the differences between the comparative form of adjectives and the superlative form of adjectives. So when we make the comparative form of an adjective, there are two ways that we do this. It typically depends on the length of the adjective. And when I say length in this case, I mean syllables, so how many beats are in the word. For example, an adjective like beautiful has 3 syllables, beautiful. We follow one rule for these long adjectives, and we follow another rule for short adjectives, like big or small. So first, let's take a look at what we do to make the comparative form with these very short adjectives, like big and small. With these short adjectives, we add er to the end of the adjective to create the comparative form. So big becomes bigger, and small becomes smaller. On the other hand, when we have a long adjective, something that has 3 or more syllables generally, we have a different form that we use to create the comparative. We say more beautiful, for example, or more expensive. After this, we put than in all of these cases. So for example, bigger than, smaller than, more expensive than, and more beautiful than. So even though the rules for creating the comparative forms are different according to the length of the adjective, we follow the adjective in the comparative form with than when we're comparing to something else. Of course, there are some exceptions to this rule. For example, the adjective fun is a very short adjective, but we don't say funner. We say more fun. There are some exceptions. There are some words that don't follow these rules perfectly, and you have to memorize them as you find them. Thankfully, there are not a lot of them, and you probably already know a few. For example, good and better, and bad and worse. So there are a few adjectives that don't follow this rule for comparatives, but thankfully they're pretty easy to remember. So this is how we make the comparative form. This is the very, very basic information about the comparative form. If you want more information, I do have a video about this topic on the English Class 101 YouTube channel, so check that out. Next, let's talk about superlatives. If you don't know the word superlative, it's the word that we use to talk about the form of a word that expresses the most of something, or in some cases, the least of something. So the highest degree of something. So for example, we could use the same adjectives that we talked about earlier. We could use big and small and expensive and beautiful to talk about how we create the superlative form of these adjectives. Again, we have some rules we can follow. When we have these short adjectives like big and small, instead of adding er like we did with the comparative form, we add est, est. So for example, smallest or biggest in these cases. So on the other hand, when we have long adjectives, we have to put a word in front of the adjective, just as we did when we were making the comparative form. So for example, with the adjectives beautiful and expensive, we make the superlative form by adding most in front of the adjective. Most beautiful or most expensive. Also, please keep in mind that when we use the superlative form, we don't follow it with than. When we're making a comparison between two things, we use that than after the comparative form of the adjective. So for example, A is bigger than B, or A is more expensive than B. On the other hand, when we're using the superlative form, we're not talking about the differences between two things. So please keep this in mind. Sometimes I see learners following the superlative form with than, like writing, for example, biggest than or most expensive than. We cannot mix these two things together. So when you use the superlative form, you're talking about the highest degree of something. So this is the biggest house, or this is the smallest dog, the most expensive restaurant, or the most beautiful sunset. So we follow this directly with the noun phrase that we're describing. So again, this is a very quick introduction, a quick refresher on comparatives and superlatives. If you do a quick search through our videos, you can find more details and more lessons about this topic, but I hope that this helps you get a good introduction. All right, thanks very much for sending your question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Shah Jahan. Hi Shah, I hope I said your name correctly. Shah says, what does freak out mean? Great question. Yeah, freak out is a really interesting expression. We have two versions of freak out. We can use to freak out as a verb, and we also have it as a noun, a freak out. So let's talk about the verb form of this first. To freak out can have a couple different meanings. We can use it in a positive sense, and we can use it in a negative sense. Generally, it means that something is not working as expected, or we're not having the emotional reaction expected. Something is a little bit crazy. So for example, if we get really, really great news, like for example, I got the job I wanted, or I got the apartment I wanted, I might express that by saying, oh my gosh, I got a promotion. I freaked out when I heard the news. So this expresses something very positive. So we're expressing kind of a crazy feeling, but we want to express that in such a way that it sounds like we're not in control. We use freak out to do that. In another example sentence of a positive use, we might say, I just found an apartment I really like. I freaked out when I saw it. So again, we're expressing a very positive feeling here. On the other hand, we can use this to talk about negative feelings too. When we receive some news or we have an experience that's kind of surprising or that makes us feel something kind of strong emotionally, we can also use this expression to talk about that in a negative way. So for example, my boyfriend broke up with me last week. I freaked out. So that shows that we're feeling kind of crazy, we're feeling unhappy and really, really out of control. So that expresses it in a negative sense. So as you can see from these example sentences, the verb to freak out depends a lot on the context of the situation. But this is a very casual expression. I do not recommend you use it in polite situations or at work. It's not rude, but it does sound a little bit rough because the idea is that you have no control over something. You have no control over your reaction. So we've talked about this so far in terms of our human emotions, right? But we also use this to talk about machines or things that aren't behaving properly. So for example, if your computer freezes or your computer starts doing something really strange, you might also use this word to describe that. You might say, my computer's freaking out right now. What's happening? Is there a virus on my computer? So this means something crazy is happening, something unexpected. You're not in control. So we have this use of freak out as well. You might use this for another kind of machine in your life. Maybe if your car starts making some kind of strange noise or behaving in a strange way, you might say, oh my gosh, my car is freaking out right now. Or to talk about another machine in your life, maybe your smartphone starts doing something really strange, opening and closing stuff, I don't know. Either way, it's really, really odd. You can describe that with this verb, like, oh, my phone is freaking out. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe I need an update. So we can use this verb to talk about some kind of erratic or strange behavior that is unexpected, and generally the feeling is that it's out of control in some way. So this is how we use the verb form. Like I said earlier, we also have this as a noun. Keep in mind that when you use it as a verb, we have freak space out as the spelling. When we use it as a noun, there's no space between the two words, a freak out. So this presents as just a very slight difference in speech, but make sure you take note of this for when you're writing these words. So as you can imagine, a freakout refers to the same thing. We can talk about the same kinds of experiences, just with a slightly different sentence structure. So for example, we can express those positive emotions with freakout as a noun. For example, when you find a new apartment that you're really excited about, you can say, I had a freakout when I found this new apartment. It's so great. Or when you get promoted at your job, you can express that with freak out as a noun. For example, I had a freak out when I got my promotion. Again, we can do the same thing with negative emotions. My boyfriend broke up with me last week. I had a freak out. So all of these express the same idea, they express the same kind of situation, it's just a difference in terms of grammatical structure. You'll also notice that we use the expression to have a freak out when we use this as a noun, so please keep this in mind too. You can use this for machines as well, as we talked about earlier. So I hope this gives you a good understanding of the expression to freak out. It's a very interesting word. Thanks very much for sending your question along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Jessie. Hi, Jessie. I hope I said your name right. Jessie says, hi, my question is, how and when do we use I don't have and I have not? I don't understand the difference. Thanks. Yeah, sure. Great question. Let's talk about the differences between I don't have and I have not. First, let's talk about I don't have. Generally speaking, we use I don't have to talk about something that we do not own or we do not possess. Or maybe it's kind of an abstract thing. We don't have enough of something, for example. Like I don't have enough time or I don't have enough money, for example. When we use I don't have, it's talking about a lack of ownership of something, something that we do not possess now or generally. On the other hand, I have not is the beginning of a grammatical structure that indicates lack of experience. So for example, I have not been to France, or I have not eaten caviar before. In these sentences, we're talking about some experience that we do not have. So very generally, this is the difference between I don't have and I have not. I don't have expresses no ownership of something, and I have not is the beginning of a sentence that expresses no experience of something. I have not done that before. I have not been there before, and so on. However, you may hear in maybe some TV shows or some movies set in very old times one more use of I have not. So in very, very old English style speaking and in writing, you may see people using I have not to express ownership of something or to express no ownership of something. Or we can also use it for these kinds of abstract concepts as I talked about before. So for example, maybe you're watching a movie or a TV show and the setting of that show takes place like, I don't know, a few hundred years ago, for example. And maybe one of the characters says something like, I have not the time today, or I have not the patience, or something like that. This is a very old English way of expressing I do not have something. But we don't use this speaking style today unless we're trying to be funny, like trying to make a joke or something like that. So in very, very rare cases, you may hear something like this, somebody using I have not to talk about no ownership of something, but generally we don't use this form so much today. This is just for your information. So I hope this answers your question about the differences between I don't have and I have not. Thanks very much for sending your question along. All right, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending your great questions. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Elle. Hi, Elle. Elle says, how do I use so far and until now? Thanks. Oh, this is a super, super good question. So far and until now can be used a lot of the time in the same position in a sentence, but they have different nuances. So let's take a look at some examples and we'll talk about the differences between them. So first, I've had a great week so far, and I've had a great week until now. Okay, so what's the difference between these two? First, both of these sentences are 100% correct. I've had a great week so far, and I've had a great week until now. They are 100% correct sentences. So let's talk about what kinds of feelings these two choices give these sentences. So far sounds like everything has been good, and it's going to continue to be good, probably, or it's not going to be bad, in other words. So in the so far sentence, it's like saying this far in the week from maybe, I don't know, Monday until Thursday or whatever, everything has been good. And I expect that it's going to continue. I have no reason to think that anything is going to change. Things are good. And that's my expectation at the moment. However, in the second sentence, my week has been good until now. Sounds ominous. So ominous means that something sounds kind of different or scary or dangerous in some way. It sounds like something bad is coming. When you say, I've had a great week until now, it sounds like something just happened that was bad. So that's like saying Monday was good, Tuesday was good, Wednesday was good, and until this moment, something happened in this moment that made it bad. My week was good until this point. So this is a key difference between I've had a great week so far and I've had a great week until now. So again, so far sounds like everything is good and I expect it to continue to be good. On the other hand, until now sounds like everything was good, but then something just happened and now it's not good. So keep this in mind. You can use this expression to talk about lots of different periods of time. So for example, you could say, I've had a great year so far, or I've had a great year until now. You might also hear until now used for kind of dramatic effect in things like movie trailers, so in the previews to movies. So for example, you might see a preview for like an action movie or an adventure movie that says, "You thought you knew everything until now," or something like that. You might hear until now used in this way. That until now is kind of marking some kind of dramatic point or some kind of change point. We don't use so far in that way. So far isn't really used to mark a point of change. Until now suggests that something has happened that has changed everything that was before that point. So when we say, "I've had a great week until now," it sounds like things were great, but now they're not. So if it helps you, you can think of until now as kind of being the opposite or a kind of contrast to what came before. So in our first example sentence, we had the word great, right? "I've had a great week until now," or "I've had a good week until now." So that until now says the condition of great stopped, right? It changed in some way. Or in the example of the movie preview, when they say something like, "You thought you knew the whole story until now," or whatever, it's some kind of change. So you're introducing some kind of new information after the until now point. So until now is marking that change in condition or that kind of change in behavior. So although both of these are totally correct in the original example sentence, they do have different feelings. So keep this in mind when you're talking about your day or your year or your week or whatever. Until now and so far are both correct, but they do have different feelings. All right, I hope that answers your question. Let's move on to our next question. Next question comes from Hugo. Hi, Hugo. Hugo says, "Hi, Alicia. My question. Is there any difference between in case of and in the event of? For example, in case of rain, the event will be canceled." Good question. In case of and in the event of generally are used in the same situation. We use these expressions to talk about the possibility of something happening. So in your example, that's a really common example. In case of rain, the event will be canceled. Or we could say, in the event of rain, the event will be canceled. So both of these just mean if, essentially. If there's rain, the event will be canceled. That's essentially what they mean. So generally speaking, we use in case of and in the event of in the same way. However, I would say that perhaps in the event of tends to be used a little bit more often in more formal or more official documentation. So you might see in the event of in the small text, like at the back of an agreement or at the back of a manual or something like that. So you might see this when people are talking about like insurance conditions or emergency conditions. Another place you might see this is on like an airplane, for example, where it says, "In the event of a water landing, your cushion can be used as a flotation device." So these kinds of official situations might use the in the event of pattern more so than the in case of pattern. In case of would probably be used more when we're talking about events or things that are part of a schedule. For example, like a classroom schedule, like I said, an event schedule of some kind, maybe a train or a bus schedule as well. Things that are maybe a little bit less serious. And then in the event of might be used more for things that are a little bit more official, like insurance or safety regulations. So they do mean the same thing. They just mean if this happens, then something else will happen. But I hope that this answers your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ibrahim. Hi, Ibrahim. Ibrahim says, "Hi, Alicia. I have a question about might and could with be. Is there a difference between that might be him and that could be him? Can I use them in the same situation? Thanks." Good question. Okay, so a little bit of modal verb review here. That might be him and that could be him are both completely correct sentences. They're 100% correct. But yes, there is a difference between the two. So you might use these expressions if you're in a situation where you're looking for someone, like you're talking to your coworkers and you're looking for someone else in a crowd. And you could say that might be him or that could be him. So what's the difference here? Let's start with could. When you say that could be him, it means there's a possibility that's him. So maybe you can't see the person clearly. You just want to express the possibility that that's the person you're looking for. So maybe if you don't know what the person looks like, but you just have some kind of basic idea and the guy maybe arrives on time or he's in the place you're expecting, you might say, that could be him, which means it is possible that that is the person we're looking for. So could expresses this basic possibility feeling. It's just possibility. We're not saying there's a chance or anything like that. We're just saying there's a possibility that's the person we're looking for. However, with the sentence, that might be him, it sounds like there's a little bit of hope, like, oh, maybe there's a possibility, yes, and I think there's a chance it might be true. So that's the difference here between might and could. When we say that could be, it just sounds like it's a possibility statement. When we say might be, there's that feeling of hope, of some kind of expectation that it's correct. Okay, let's take a look at one more example situation that uses the same concept. So let's imagine that you're using your phone to search for a location. You arrive and you look around and you think, should I say this might be the right location, or should I say this could be the right location? Again, both sentences are 100% correct. So when you check your phone and you think, okay, this could be the right location, it means it's possible I'm in the right location. There is a possibility, there is a chance. I'm not saying that it's good or bad, I just want to say like a neutral report of possibility. However, if I say, this might be the right place, it sounds like there's a little bit of expectation that I am correct. So I'm not 100% sure, but there's a little bit of that feeling there that, I think I'm onto something here. I think I maybe have it. That's the feeling here. So again, could gives us that neutral report of possibility. Might gives us a little bit of a chance that we're correct, at least in a positive sentence. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between might be and could be. Thanks very much for sending this question in. All right, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending your super great questions. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Eduardo. Hi Eduardo. Eduardo says, hi Alicia, what's the difference between as long as, so long as, and providing? Thanks. Nice question. As long as, so long as, and providing. Okay, so we can use these three words or these three expressions in the same way in some cases. So let's take a look at an example sentence or an example situation where we could use all of these. So for example, you can go to the party as long as you finish your homework. Or you can go to the party so long as you finish your homework. Or you can go to the party providing you finish your homework. So all of these sentences are correct. They all mean you can go to the party if you do your homework. So the expression as long as or so long as you might also hear it used, means if this condition is true, or only if this condition is true, can this other thing be possible, or can this other thing be done? So you can go to the party as long as you finish your homework. Sounds like saying if you don't finish your homework, you cannot go to the party, right? So we use as long as and so long as to do this, and providing can also be used to do this, but providing is something that sounds much more formal or more official. So although I used it in the example sentence earlier, that wasn't necessarily a natural example sentence. Grammatically, you can go to the party providing you do your homework sounds maybe in most cases way too formal for kind of an everyday exchange between a parent and a child, probably. But we would see this providing term used more in official agreements, like in contracts, documents, some maybe like business email, for example, when you want to give that same feeling of as long as this is true, this other thing will be possible. We use providing to do that in a very quick and efficient and very sophisticated way. So I mentioned that you can use these three terms or these three expressions sometimes in the same manner or in the same situation. And that's when you want to express this only if situation. So only if this is true can you do this other thing. That's the situation, or that's the condition in which it's okay to use all three of these in the same manner. However, of course, you can use as long as in a completely different way. As long as can also be used to talk about two things that are of equal length, right? For example, this phone is as long as that phone. That means they have the same length, right? So my iPhone is as long as his Android, for example. So if you want to talk about the lengths of two objects, you can use as long as. We cannot use so long as, and of course we cannot use providing in this way. So keep that in mind. As long as does also have this other meaning, this other use that we use to talk about two things that are of equal length. But for your question, as long as, so long as, and providing have the same use, but they do have different feels. I would recommend that you use as long as in everyday conversation. So long as is less commonly used in American English, and providing tends to be used more in business English and other official documentation. So I hope this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from VJ. Hi, VJ. VJ says, hey, Alicia, are the last 2 weeks and the past 2 weeks interchangeable? Nice question. Okay, the last 2 weeks and the past 2 weeks. This depends on context. This depends on the situation. So, for example, I ate so much junk food in the last 2 weeks, and I ate so much junk food in the past 2 weeks are exactly the same. We're talking about the previous 2 weeks. So before this conversation, before the statement, we're talking about the 2 weeks prior, right? So in this situation, they are completely interchangeable. You can use them in exactly the same way. They have exactly the same feeling. However, there are some cases where you can use the last 2 weeks in a situation, but you cannot apply the past 2 weeks and create a correct sentence. So for example, let's imagine that you're part of a group that is planning a schedule for a project, and you want to look at the final 2 weeks of something, right? So when you say to your group, okay, I want to talk about the last 2 weeks of the project, that means that you want to look at the final 2 weeks in your schedule. So maybe you're thinking ahead in your plan. So maybe you're in month 1 right now, but you want to talk about month 3 of the project. You want to talk about the last 2 weeks of the project. In that case, you cannot say the past 2 weeks. So the past 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, however long. So the past 2 weeks, the past one, is always going to refer to a point in time in the past. When you talk about the last of something, it can mean the most recent of something, the last few days, the last few weeks, and so on. But when you're talking about a schedule, especially like a schedule in the future, as in my example situation, you need to rely on the context of the situation. So if you're looking at a schedule for the next 3 months and someone in your group says, okay, let's talk about the last 2 weeks here. That means let's look at the final 2 weeks in our project schedule. So pay attention to the context. You cannot say, let's look at the past 2 weeks in our schedule. That would not be correct here. So please keep this in mind. Generally, in everyday conversation, we're not really thinking so much about something that's so far in the future. We're not thinking so much about like a future schedule or something like that. But you may find situations where you need to talk about a specific part of a schedule for the future. In that case, make sure you use the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks or days or whatever measurement of time you're using. So thanks very much for this question. I hope that this answer helped you. All right, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Sana. Hi, Sana. Sana says, hey, Alicia, I was wondering, are there other ways to say I love you in English? For example, to my family or my friends? Yeah, great question. Super nice question. So I love you in English is a very open phrase, and a lot of people like to use this phrase rather generously. And they'll say, I love you, or I love this, or I love that, or they might even call another person love. So depending on the person, they might use I love you and other similar expressions very freely, or some people might be a little more reserved with how often they use this expression. But yes, we do have other ways to express our appreciation. When we think about love, we often think about it in like a romantic sense, right? We would say this to our partner. So we might say I love you to that special person in our life, right? But how do we express our love and appreciation for family members or friends and so on? It's common to say I love you to your family members. That's also okay to use. It doesn't mean romantic love in that case, and we understand that from the context. It's also okay to express I love you to your friends as well. So if you don't want to say I love you to someone, but you still want to express your appreciation, you can say I'm so glad we're friends, or you mean a lot to me, or I really appreciate you, or I really appreciate that thing that you did for me, or I'm so happy that we met. There are a lot of ways to express this kind of appreciation for someone without saying love. Interestingly, we don't really say like, I really, really like you so much. We sometimes use I like you a lot when we're first getting to know a romantic partner, but that's pretty much the only time that we say I like you, unless we kind of want to make a little joke to somebody like in our family or to our friend circle. We generally don't say I like you directly. We might say some other kind of compliment, like you're really funny, or I'm glad that you're in my life, or something like that. So you may not hear people using like that much, but from time to time, depending on the person, I suppose it is possible. So that's a quick list of just a few expressions that people like to use from time to time. You mean so much to me. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing that, or thank you so much for being friends with me. Thank you so much for being a part of my life. I'm so glad we're friends. I'm so glad that we met, and so on. I think that you kind of get the idea. So express that happiness and appreciation, and you can communicate something similar to love, even if it isn't like that special romantic love or that special kind of family-related love. So I hope this gives you some ideas for how you can express those nice feelings in a way different to saying, I love you. All right, thanks very much for an interesting question. Thanks for sending it along. Okay, Hi everyone, I'm Alicia. Welcome to Conversational Phrases. In this lesson, you'll learn how to ask where something is located. After watching this video, you'll be able to ask for directions. Now let's take a look at some conversational phrases.
Listen to the dialogue.
Where is the supermarket?
It's over there. Listen to it again.
Where is the supermarket?
Where is the supermarket? It's over there. It's over there. First of all, you'll need to learn how to say, where is place? The pattern is,
Where is place?
for example, where is the supermarket?
Where is the supermarket? Where is the supermarket?
Now, how do you answer this question? It's over there. Listen to it again. It's over there. It's over there. Here are a few more places you can use with the same pattern. The supermarket. The supermarket. The supermarket. The supermarket. The supermarket. The bank. The bank. The bank. The bank. The bank. The bathroom. The bathroom. The bathroom. The bathroom. The bathroom. The mall. The mall. The mall. The mall. The mall. Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat or speak along with the native speakers. Where is the bank? It's over there. Where is the bank? Where is the bank? It's over there. It's over there. Where is the bathroom? It's over there. Where is the bathroom? Where is the bathroom? It's over there. It's over there. Where is the mall? It's over there. Where is the mall? Where is the mall? It's over there. It's over there. Okay, now it's your turn. Do you remember how to say, where is place?
Where is place?
And how do you answer it? It's over there. Imagine you're looking for the bank. Do you remember how to say the bank? The bank. The bank. Say, where is the bank? Where is the bank? Now ask where the bank is and answer saying the bank is over there. Where is the bank? It's over there. Now imagine you're looking for the bathroom. Do you remember how to say the bathroom? The bathroom. The bathroom. Say, where is the bathroom? Where is the bathroom? Now ask where the bathroom is and answer saying the bathroom is over there. Where is the bathroom? It's over there. Now imagine you're looking for the mall. Do you remember how to say the mall? The mall. The mall. Say, where is the mall? Where is the mall? Now ask where the mall is and answer saying the mall is over there. Where is the mall? It's over there.
In this lesson, you learned new vocabulary and phrases you can use in your everyday life to ask the location of a place. You're now able to ask for directions like a native speaker. Not enough time in the day. This is one of the biggest reasons people struggle with learning a language. Sure, you want to speak the language fluently, but you're already busy with work, school, relationships, TV shows, and goals that you just can't give up on. But the truth is, if you're going out and commuting, then you actually do have a bit of time, which is actually enough to learn a language if you're learning the right way. 5 easy ways to learn while on a walk or on your commute. So in this guide, you'll discover how you can learn a language and make meaningful progress on your walks or commutes, and how to apply these tips to our learning system. But you can also apply them to your other resources. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. So, how can you learn on a commute or a 10-minute walk? Number 1. Download our free app, Innovative Language Learning. If you're already thinking that getting an app is obvious, you're right. But many apps out there require you to be actively tapping and using your device, which may not be good if your commute involves driving. With Innovative Language Learning, you can just press play on a lesson and listen to practical conversations in your target language, all hands-free. You hear real speakers, real voices. And then our teachers explain all the words and grammar rules from the conversation while you're walking or even driving. Each lesson is just a few minutes long, meaning you can learn quite a bit on a 10-minute commute. Number 2, boost your vocabulary with the word of the day. This is another thing you can do on the go. Our free Word of the Day email lessons are sent daily, and all you have to do is open up your phone, check the email, and learn the word. And that only takes a minute or less. Many of our existing learners like this study tool because even if they're too busy to do anything else, keeping up with the Word of the Day still keeps them on track with the language. Everyone that signs up to our learning system gets the free Word of the Day automatically. So if you want this study tool, just click the link in the description. Number 3, swipe through our vocabulary and phrase images. You know how you open up your Photos app and swipe through to look at your pictures? Well, you can do just that and learn words and phrases at the same time with our infographics. Just download our free infographics. These contain several words per image, so you're not learning just one word at a time. And then swipe through while you're on a walk or on a commute. Of course, you can do this with other resources too, like our PDF cheat sheets. Number 4, listen to words and phrases on repeat with our audio slideshow. Just visit our free vocabulary lists inside the menu. Pick a list and select Play Slideshow. You can set this slideshow on a loop and play the words and phrases over and over while you're out on the go. And number 5, learn with your teacher on the go. If you're a Premium Plus member, you can also use our app to interact with your teacher, ask questions, make recordings of yourself speaking, and get corrections. Just tap on My Teacher on the bottom menu. Many of our learners will spend a few minutes sending questions about grammar they've learned in the lessons, and others send quick write-ups about their day for corrections. So go ahead and try any one of these tips and learn a bit of the language while you're out on the go. And if you want to get access to these resources and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Not enough time in the day. This is one of the biggest reasons people struggle with learning a language. Sure, you want to speak the language fluently, but you're already busy with work, school, relationships, TV shows, and goals that you just can't give up on. But the truth is, if you're going out and commuting, then you actually do have a bit of time, which is actually enough to learn a language if you're learning the right way. 5 easy ways to learn while on a walk or on your commute. So in this guide, you'll discover how you can learn a language and make meaningful progress on your walks or commutes, and how to apply these tips to our learning system, but you can also apply them to your other resources. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. So, how can you learn on a commute or a 10-minute walk? Number 1. Download our free app, Innovative Language Learning. If you're already thinking that getting an app is obvious, you're right. But many apps out there require you to be actively tapping and using your device, which may not be good if your commute involves driving. With Innovative Language Learning, you can just press play on a lesson and listen to practical conversations in your target language, all hands-free. You hear real speakers, real voices. And then our teachers explain all the words and grammar rules from the conversation while you're walking or even driving. Each lesson is just a few minutes long, meaning you can learn quite a bit on a 10-minute commute. Number 2, boost your vocabulary with the word of the day. This is another thing you can do on the go. Our free Word of the Day email lessons are sent daily, and all you have to do is open up your phone, check the email, and learn the word. And that only takes a minute, or less. Many of our existing learners like this study tool because even if they're too busy to do anything else, keeping up with the Word of the Day still keeps them on track with the language. Everyone that signs up to our learning system gets the free Word of the Day automatically. So if you want this study tool, just click the link in the description. Number 3, swipe through our vocabulary and phrase images. You know how you open up your Photos app and swipe through to look at your pictures? Well, you can do just that and learn words and phrases at the same time with our infographics. Just download our free infographics. These contain several words per image, so you're not learning just one word at a time. And then swipe through while you're on a walk or on a commute. Of course, you can do this with other resources too, like our PDF cheat sheets. Number 4, listen to words and phrases on repeat with our audio slideshow. Just visit our free vocabulary lists inside the menu. Pick a list and select Play Slideshow. You can set this slideshow on a loop and play the words and phrases over and over while you're out on the go. And number 5, learn with your teacher on the go. If you're a Premium Plus member, you can also use our app to interact with your teacher, ask questions, make recordings of yourself speaking, and get corrections. Just tap on My Teacher on the bottom menu. Many of our learners will spend a few minutes sending questions about grammar they've learned in the lessons, and others send quick write-ups about their day for corrections. So go ahead and try any one of these tips and learn a bit of the language while you're out on the go. And if you want to get access to these resources and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Remember, here's what you can do to learn all of these words by heart. Drill these words with our spaced repetition flashcards, which will help cement these words into your long-term memory. Save them to the word bank, your personal vocabulary collection, where you can print out your own study sheets, or review the words with our looped vocabulary slideshow and play it until you know all of the words. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to get these lessons and study tools. Ever listen to a song on repeat until the lyrics get stuck in your head? Well, you can do just that with language learning. Listening to your target language on repeat is a guaranteed way to get the language stuck in your head. Just imagine, you hit play and sit back and listen to the most common words and phrases on loop until they're stuck in your head without having to do much else. Does this work? And how can you do this? Stick around. How to review words on repeat and learn fast with this study tool. In this guide, you'll discover 1. A special free study tool that does the repetition for you, 2. How to get words and phrases stuck in your head, and 3. How to practice speaking in your target language. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. First, how can you start listening to your target language on repeat? If you're learning with our system, then you already have access to something called the vocabulary slideshow, which helps you do just that. And picture this. You could be walking to the store, going to work, or lying on the couch, listening to words and phrases on repeat with the vocabulary slideshow. There are no ads to interrupt you like you have on YouTube. And you come out knowing and speaking more of your target language without doing much work. And this approach works because it's repetition, a powerful way to learn almost anything. Except the vocabulary slideshow does all the repetition for you. And you'll find the vocabulary slideshow inside our free vocabulary lists and in our audio lessons. So if you visit a vocabulary list, look for the slideshow button at the top. And if you're on a lesson, scroll down to the vocabulary section and click slideshow. Second, how can you listen to your target language on repeat with this? First, pick a free vocabulary or phrase list. You'll get hundreds of lists based on common topics, like asking and answering, "How are you?" Winter vocabulary, talking about your day, and more. Just pick a list of phrases you want to learn. When you open the list and click on the slideshow button, make sure to check the loop playback option. You can also exclude the translation audio so you can listen to just your target language and then start the slideshow and it'll play on repeat. If you want to practice speaking and shadowing the words, make sure the slideshow is set to slow so you get plenty of time in between words. Otherwise, if you set it to fast, there won't be much time in between, which is also good if you just want to drill the words until they're stuck in your head. So, if you want to get access to this learning tool and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Remember, here's what you can do to learn all of these words by heart. Drill these words with our spaced repetition flashcards, which will help cement these words into your long-term memory. Save them to the word bank, your personal vocabulary collection, where you can print out your own study sheets, or review the words with our looped vocabulary slideshow and play it until you know all of the words. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to get these lessons and study tools. If you want to learn more words so you can speak and understand even more of your target language, there is a super simple way to do this. In fact, it's so simple that most people don't even think of it because it doesn't involve language apps, YouTube videos, or your computer. I'm talking about writing things out by hand. How to learn words and phrases by writing them out. And in this guide, you'll discover 1. Why writing words out helps you pick up languages faster, 2. How to use our free PDF workbooks to practice writing, and much more. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. You probably already know that one of the best ways to master a language is through actually using it and practicing it. And that's where writing things out comes in, because you're using the language when you write it down. And on top of that, the physical act of writing helps your brain remember the words much better than seeing them on screen or typing them out. Now, handwriting may feel slow, but by taking it slow, you actually speed up your learning and master the language faster because you engage more of your brain in the process. So, how can you do this? You can apply this trick to any resource that you're using right now by simply copying out the words and phrases that you come across. The more you write them out, the better they'll stick. With our learning system, you can 1. Practice with our free PDF writing workbooks and worksheets. All members get free access to our PDF writing workbooks and worksheets, which are based on common topics like the alphabet, common nouns, adjectives, greetings, and much more. Inside, you learn the most common words and phrases for that topic, and you get plenty of space to practice writing the words out. And in the last section of the workbook, you'll get tested on the words. You'll see the translations of the words, so you'll have to try and remember the meaning in the target language and write it in. 2. Practice writing with the free Word of the Day emails. Every day, we send you a new word to your email inbox. You get the audio pronunciation, sample sentence, and a picture to help it stick. But you can also just as easily write that word down and do that daily, every time the emails come in. And now you have a simple language routine going that you can stick with. Now, if you want to learn a little more than just words, you can 3. Practice writing out the conversations from our lessons. So, if you want to master entire conversations in your target language, you can also copy out the conversations from our audio and video lessons by hand. And this will help you master words, phrases, and grammar rules all at once, since you're not just writing out words, but actual lines. Just scroll down to the dialogue section of a lesson to see the conversation. So if you want to get access to these learning tools and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Learning to speak at a basic level in your target language isn't hard at all. In fact, you could cheat your way into speaking, and you could do this in just a few minutes a day, anywhere, anytime. How? How to learn conversations on the go with conversation cheat sheets. Stick around. In this quick guide, you'll discover 1. A free cheat way to start speaking in your target language, 2. How to pick up practical conversations anywhere, anytime, and more. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. So, 1. How can you learn to speak the basics of your target language? With our conversation cheat sheets, you can basically cheat and start speaking today. You learn a basic practical conversation in every cheat sheet, plus additional words, so you can plug in and create your own sentences. All you have to do is quickly review the cheat sheet for a minute or two, read the phrases out loud, and that's it. 2. How to pick up practical conversations anywhere, anytime. You get over 30 such conversation cheat sheets on our website, all covering practical topics such as numbers, talking on the phone, greetings and survival phrases, and more. And the best part is, you can download these cheat sheets as PDFs and keep them forever. Save them to your phone or even print them out and quickly review them anywhere. So if you're out on the go and want to learn a bit of language for a few minutes, you can quickly glance through the cheat sheets on your phone. If you want to get access to these learning tools and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Great work! Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.